They said I should be grateful for their roof, that I was lucky to live in their house. What they didn't know, that roof, it was paid for by me. And when I left, I took every single shingle with me. The day my daughter-in-law called me a lucky guest, I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. It was morning, around 8:15. The sun was barely up. I had just made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee like I always do. My son Eric likes his with extra pepper. I still remember these little things. I thought it mattered. Apparently it didn't. I had just set his plate down on the table when Mandy, my daughter-in-law, walked in wearing her robe and holding her phone. She looked at me like I was in the way of her camera. "Could you not putter around behind me?" she said, lifting the phone toward her face. "I'm filming for my morning vlog." I gave her a small nod and stepped aside. Then she said it loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear. "You know, not everyone is lucky enough to live rent-free in someone else's home." I froze, my hand still holding a dish rag, my heart doing that slow, painful stretch like it had been pinched. Lucky? Is that what I was now? A year ago, I lost my husband, Harold. We were married. The house felt empty the minute he was gone. The porch was too quiet. The rocking chair didn't creak the same without him sitting next to me. Eric, my only son, offered for me to move in with them. "Just until you're feeling stronger, Mom," he said. "You shouldn't be alone." I didn't want to impose, but I said yes. I gave up our house, sold it in fact. The money went into their mortgage. Mandy was 6 months pregnant at the time and wanted a new kitchen, so I gave what I had, gladly, because that's what family does. Or at least, that's what I thought. At first, everything seemed fine. I had the guest bedroom, a tiny space off the garage that they converted. No windows, but I didn't complain. I helped with laundry, cooked dinner 3 nights a week, and watched little Madison while they worked. But slowly the energy shifted. Mandy stopped thanking me for meals. Eric began coming home later and later. They'd leave dirty dishes overnight, turn the volume up on the TV when I was trying to read, use my bedroom as storage when they ordered new furniture online. They didn't see me as family anymore. I was a fixture, a piece of old furniture, something worn out and tolerated. Still, I told myself to be patient. "Don't make trouble," I whispered each night to myself. "Just wait." But then came that morning. Mandy's words, "lucky to live here," still echoing in my ears. Eric didn't even defend me. He just kept eating his eggs. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed. The blankets were rumpled, and my slippers were crooked on the floor. That's when I saw it. A yellow file folder poking out of the storage bin under my bed. It was labeled Mortgage Roof Permit 2022. I reached for it, my fingers trembling. And I remembered. Back when they bought the house, the roof had leaks, bad ones. Insurance refused to cover it. Mandy cried for days. Eric said they'd never afford the repairs, so I paid for it. Not just a little. I paid for the entire replacement. "Think of it as my gift to you," I told them. "From Dad and me." Eric hugged me so hard I nearly cried. But now, that gift had turned into a weapon. They used it to trap me here, remind me I didn't pay rent, remind me I should be grateful. But they forgot something. That roof was still in my name. I didn't act right away. No, I waited. I watched how they moved, how they spoke when they thought I couldn't hear. I listened to Mandy's videos, how she bragged about her home renovations and minimalist upgrades, always forgetting to mention who made it all possible. That's fine. Let her forget. Because I remembered everything. I still had the receipts, the bank transfer, the contractor's contract with my name and my money on every page, and best of all, the paperwork they forgot to finish. The one that said the roof wasn't included in the title transfer. Technically, legally, it was still mine. Over the next 2 weeks I started making calls. First to the roofing company. Turns out they remembered me. "Mrs. Delaney?" The man said, You were the one who brought us those lemon bars. How could I forget? Then to a lawyer named Nancy, a sharp woman in her 60s who didn't blink twice when I told her my plan. People think the elderly are harmless, she said, reviewing the documents. You're about to prove them wrong. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I waited until Eric and Mandy left for a weekend trip, a wellness retreat, they called. Left Madison with a sitter 2 streets over. Didn't even ask me if I wanted to see her. That was their final mistake. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, the truck pulled into the drive. It had ladders, helmets, and 3 men in neon vests. The neighbors peeked from behind their curtains as I stood on the porch, hands in my lavender cardigan pockets, nodding politely. Strip it clean, I told the foreman. He looked at the house, then at me. You sure, ma'am? I held up the file folder. I own it. Take it down. By noon, the shingles were stacked in neat bundles by the curb. By 2 p.m., the skylight they installed was gone. By 4 p.m., there was nothing but exposed plywood beams and a wide-open ceiling. I stood there in the front yard and watched the clouds drift past where their ceiling used to be. I didn't feel guilt. I felt justice. When Eric and Mandy returned Sunday evening, they pulled into the driveway and froze. Eric got out of the car, jaw open. What the hell happened? I stepped forward, calm as could be. You told me I was lucky to live under your roof, I said, handing him the folder. But it turns out, it was my roof all along. Mandy screamed something unintelligible. Eric fumbled with the papers. They were real, signed, stamped, filed. I turned and walked back toward the sidewalk. Oh, and one more thing, I said over my shoulder. I found a new place to live, somewhere with gratitude, not entitlement. Then I got into my friend Rita's car and let her drive me away. The sun was setting behind us, a wide open sky overhead, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was upset, but because I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Real peace. The kind that settles in your bones when you finally stop apologizing for just being alive. Rita had made up the guest room for me. Fresh sheets, chamomile tea on the nightstand, even my favorite peppermint lotion from years ago. She's that kind of friend, the kind who remembers small things when the world forgets you. I stared at the ceiling, soft and whole, without holes or beams, and I thought, let them sit under their own sky tonight. Let them think about what it means to call something theirs. Because when you build your comfort on someone else's kindness, and then insult the hand that gave it, you're building on sand. And my son and his wife, they were about to feel the collapse. The next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls, 6 from Eric, 4 from Mandy, 1 from the contractor who removed the roof. He just wanted to say the news vans had shown up. Apparently the neighbors had opinions. And cameras. A photo of Mandy standing in the front yard yelling into the sky made the local paper's Homeowners Gone Wild section. I didn't ask for that. But I didn't exactly stop it either. When I finally picked up, Eric's voice came through hot and heavy. Mom, what are you doing? You embarrassed us in front of the whole town. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I gave you everything, I said. And you treated me like a stray dog. That's not fair. You said I was lucky to live with you, I interrupted. But I paid for that roof. For your countertops. Your fancy fridge. You forgot who kept you warm. There was a pause. Then you should have just talked to us. I almost laughed. Talked? I'd try every night I cooked dinner. Every time I folded their laundry. Every hug they shrugged off. I did talk, Eric, I said. You just weren't listening. And with that, I ended the call. Over the next few days, I settled in at Rita's. It wasn't a big house, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. But it had sunlight and soft music playing from her little record player. We sat on the porch most afternoons, sipping lemonade and laughing about our wild younger years. "You really took their roof?" She giggled once, nearly choking on her drink. "I took back what I paid for," I corrected her. "But yes, and I didn't regret it. I started making lists. Things I had paid for in that house, not to take back. No, I wasn't going to play that petty, but I wanted to know how far I had let my generosity go. The roof, the new cabinets, the washer and dryer, even the damn smart thermostat Mandy bragged about in her Instagram stories, paid for by me. Over $60,000 in total. And what did I get in return? A drafty room with no closet and a lecture on gratitude. Eric texted again a few days later. This time he was softer. "Mom, Madison misses you. Can we talk?" That got me. I won't lie. Madison, my granddaughter, was my sunshine. 7 years old, smart as a whip, and always full of curiosity. We used to read together on Sunday mornings. She'd sit next to me with her socked feet tucked under my thigh, whispering questions about every animal in her picture books. I hadn't seen her since the roof event, as Rita now called it. I didn't answer right away. I needed to be sure this wasn't manipulation. Then the letter came. It was handwritten. Crayon blue, folded 3 times. "Dear Nana, I'm sorry Mom said mean things. I miss your pancakes. I miss your hugs. Can you come back soon? Madison." There was a small uneven heart drawn at the bottom. My name inside it. I held the letter to my chest for a long time, and then I called my lawyer. Not to reverse anything, but to take things further. See, while they were busy treating me like a burden, they didn't realize I still had legal authority over the trust Harold and I had created. Eric's name was on it. So was Madison's. But the control, that belonged to me, until I passed. I had left it untouched for years, assuming things would work out on their own. But now, it was time to make things very clear. I scheduled a meeting with Nancy, my lawyer, and told her everything. She didn't blink. "Want to adjust the terms?" she asked. I nodded. "I want to make sure Madison is protected," I said. "But Eric and Mandy, they get nothing unless they treat people with respect." Nancy leaned back in her chair and gave a slow grin. "I'll draft something ironclad." It was the first time in months I felt like I had power in my hands. Not bitterness, not revenge for its own sake, but control, boundaries, justice. I didn't plan to ruin them. I just planned to remind them who built their roof, and who could take the foundation if necessary. The following week I visited Madison at her school. Rita drove me. When I walked into the classroom and Madison spotted me, she jumped out of her chair like a cork from a bottle. "Nana." She wrapped her arms around me so tightly I thought my bones might pop. I didn't care. "I missed you too, baby," I whispered into her hair. We sat under a tree during recess. I gave her a tiny locket Harold had once bought for me. Inside I placed a new photo, one of just us. She held it close like it was treasure. It reminded me why I was doing all this. Not to punish, but to protect, to break a cycle. Back at Rita's, the phone rang again. This time, it was Mandy. Her voice was clipped, tired, maybe even scared. "Is it true? You rewrote the trust?" "Yes." "You're cutting us out?" "No," I said. "I'm holding you accountable." There was silence, then a sigh. "I was angry," she said. "I felt like we were doing everything alone, and you weren't," I said. "You just didn't see the help standing right in front of you." "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," she whispered. "But it sounded that way," I replied gently. "And now I need space, more silence." Then, understood. She hung up first this time. It wasn't satisfying, not like you'd expect. There was no dramatic apology, no flowers or letters, just space, just distance. But sometimes, that's what healing looks like. Not fireworks, but firm fences. One afternoon, as I sat in Rita's backyard watering her zinnias, she brought out 2 glasses of sweet tea and plopped down beside me. "You planning to go back?" she asked. I shook my head. "I'm planning to move forward," she smiled. "Then let's find you a place with good sunlight and even better peace." I looked up at the sky, clear and blue, no roof over me, no one above me, just open sky and the life I was reclaiming. Moving out should have felt like the end of something. Instead, it felt like the beginning. Rita and I spent the next few weeks doing something I hadn't done in years. House hunting. Not for some grand place with 5 bathrooms and a media room. No. I wanted something small, bright, and mine. I wasn't looking for square footage. I was looking for dignity. Every tour we went on, I paid attention to things I'd never cared about before. Closet space. Kitchen windows. Whether there was a bench near the entryway for sitting to untie my shoes. The agent kept saying, "Most buyers your age look for community." I smiled every time and replied, "I'm not most buyers." Because I wasn't. I had been the giver all my life, and now it was time to claim what I had earned. We finally found it. A little bungalow on the edge of town. 1 story, white shutters, wraparound porch. The lawn was overgrown, and the paint needed a touch-up, but I saw the soul of it. It was a house meant for someone like me. Steady, quiet, still standing, even after all the storms. I bought it with cash, from the account that once helped Mandy buy quartz countertops, from the account that they said I was lucky to have spent on them. Now I was spending it on me. Moving in wasn't fancy. I didn't hire movers or make a big announcement. I just told Rita to drop me off with a few suitcases and a crock pot. And that first night, I boiled some lentils, played Nat King Cole on a small Bluetooth speaker, and curled up in a rocking chair that I bought at a garage sale the week before. The windows creaked when the wind passed, and I smiled, because they sounded just like my old house. It wasn't long before the news spread. Small towns work like that. You can build a whole life in silence. But the moment you do something bold, they all notice. I started getting strange looks at the grocery store. Little half smiles. One woman even whispered, "You're the one with the roof story, right?" I chuckled and said, "I guess I am." Some people looked horrified. Others, impressed. But I didn't need their approval, just like I didn't need Eric's excuses or Mandy's guilt. I wasn't out for revenge anymore. I was out for restoration. And yet, life has a funny way of circling back. One day, about a month after I moved in, I got a knock on the door. It was Eric, alone. He looked older, or maybe just tired. He had his hands stuffed in the pockets of his jeans, and his shirt was wrinkled like he'd slept in it. I didn't invite him in. I stepped onto the porch instead. "Mom," he said, looking around. "This place is really nice. Thank you." I didn't expect it to be so peaceful. It is. We stood there for a few seconds, neither of us speaking. I could feel his apology trying to push through his chest, but it just sat there. Finally I asked, "Is everything okay with Madison?" He nodded quickly. "Yeah, she's good. She talks about you every day." My heart squeezed a little. Then he said, "We had to borrow money from Mandy's parents for repairs. They weren't happy. That's unfortunate." He stared down at the floorboards, ashamed. "I didn't come to ask for money," he said. "I came to say I was wrong." Those 4 words cracked something in me. Not because I needed to hear them, but because I never thought I would. We sat down on the steps. He started talking about how work had become stressful, about Mandy's growing online business, about the pressure to look perfect while everything was falling apart. I listened, not as a doormat, not as the lucky guest, but as a mother, one with boundaries now. I didn't realize how much you were doing for us, he said, until you were gone. I nodded. That's the problem with invisible work, I said. You don't see it until it stops. He was quiet again, then softly. I miss having you around. I don't miss how you made me feel, I replied. But I miss Maddie too. We made a deal. No, not a deal. A boundary. I would be part of Madison's life. But I wouldn't return to their home, not ever. I would meet them for lunches, host her for weekend sleepovers, but I would not shrink myself to fit back inside their space. He agreed, and that was the first time I felt like I was seen. A few days later, I got another visitor. This time, Mandy. I admit, I tensed the second I saw her on my porch. She wore oversized sunglasses and carried a mason jar of some fancy juice, but her face was pale, and her hands fidgeted with her phone. I opened the door and stepped outside. No cameras, I said. She half laughed. Fair enough. We stood there, neither speaking, until she finally said, I judged you. I raised an eyebrow. I thought you were stuck in the past. She continued, that you didn't get how things worked now. I may not understand TikTok, I said, but I know how kindness works. She nodded. I was wrong, she whispered. There it was again, an apology, not a perfect one, but real. She handed me a paper, an invitation to Madison's school play. She really wants you there, she said. Front row. I held the paper in my hand and felt that same warmth I used to feel when Madison crawled into my lap for bedtime stories. Thank you, I said. I'll be there. Then Mandy hesitated and asked a question I didn't expect. Could you show me how you make those lemon bars? That was the first time she ever asked to learn something from me. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real beginning. The house has grown into itself over time. I planted tulips in the front yard, painted the shutters pale blue, hung a wind chime that sings when the breeze rolls through. It's quiet, yes, but not lonely. Not anymore. Rita comes over for card games on Wednesdays. Madison visits every other weekend. We bake. We read. We talk about the stars. She tells me I'm her favorite old person. I take it as the highest honor. The truth is, sometimes people won't value what you give them until you stop giving. Sometimes you have to walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I didn't take the roof to hurt them. I took it to remind myself that I mattered. And now, I live under a roof that belongs entirely to me. Every shingle, every nail, every inch. Mine. And for the first time in years, so is my peace. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed quiet, if I'd kept folding their laundry, smiling through their jabs, pretending their silence didn't sting. Would they have ever looked at me and seen more than an obligation? Probably not. But thankfully, I'll never have to find out. Because I spoke up, I walked out, and I made sure they felt the weight of what they lost when they mistook kindness for weakness. Life in my little white bungalow has taken root. Like me, the place is modest but sturdy, weathered by time, but far from done. I planted rosemary in the kitchen window. Madison says it smells like comfort food and hugs. There's a little blue chair by the front door where I sit with my tea each morning, watching the street slowly come alive. The paperboy tosses the newspaper too hard sometimes, and I have to dig it out of the bushes. But I don't mind. This house doesn't talk back to me. It doesn't roll its eyes. It doesn't tell me I'm lucky to be here. It just lets me be. One Saturday morning, I was rearranging the photo frames in my living room when I heard a knock at the door. It was Eric again, this time with Madison. "Hi, Nana," she yelled, holding up a shoebox wrapped in pink ribbon. I smiled, stepped back, and opened the door wide. Eric looked a little nervous, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. He didn't need to worry, I'd built boundaries. Yes, but not walls, especially not where Madison was concerned. They came in, I made cocoa and grilled cheese, the kind with butter on both sides of the bread, just how Maddie likes it. After lunch, Madison pulled the ribbon from the shoebox and opened it carefully. Inside were small paper cards, each with a crayon drawing on one side and a handwritten message on the other. "I made you coupons," she said proudly. I picked one up. It read, "Good for one hug and 2 stories." Another one said, "Redeem for a dance party and cookies." The last one simply said, "Good for when you feel sad." I looked at her, speechless. Eric wiped his eyes before I could see. We spent the rest of the afternoon laughing, dancing to Elvis in the kitchen, and baking oatmeal raisin cookies, Harold's favorite. That night, after Madison fell asleep on my couch with her mouth open and cookie crumbs on her sweater, Eric and I stepped outside. The porch light cast a soft glow across the yard. He sat on the steps, elbows on his knees. "You really built something beautiful here, Mom," he said quietly. I looked around. It wasn't fancy, but it was full of warmth, of memory, of respect. "Thank you," I said. "It's mine." He nodded slowly. "I get that now." We sat in silence for a bit before he asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Do you forgive me?" I didn't answer right away, not because I hadn't thought about it. I had, but because forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a path you walk, and some steps take longer than others. "I forgive you," I said, "but things won't go back to how they were." He nodded again. No arguments this time, no excuses, just a quiet understanding. And that, to me, was progress. The next few weeks passed peacefully. I hosted Madison for a weekend sleepover. We camped out in the living room with flashlights and s'mores made over the stove. I told her stories about her grandfather, how he once danced with me in the grocery store aisle just because my favorite song came on. She asked if love like that was real. I told her yes, and that she should never settle for less. We made a scrapbook with old photos and cut out flowers. She titled it Nana's Real Life Adventures. That book sits on my coffee table now. I flip through it when I need to remember who I am. Not a burden, not an extra mouth to feed, but a woman who gave, endured, and then finally took her power back. One sunny Thursday, I got a call from Nancy, my lawyer. She said the trust updates were finalized. Eric and Mandy would still receive something one day, but only if they kept up monthly contributions to Madison's education fund and volunteered at the community center twice a year. Accountability, not punishment. Consequences, not cruelty. Nancy laughed and said, "You'd make a better judge than most people on the bench." I smiled. Just an old lady who's had enough of being stepped on. Then came an unexpected letter in the mail. Not from Eric. Not from Mandy. From Mandy's mother. Apparently she'd heard about the roof situation through the grapevine and wanted to reach out. It was handwritten, polite, and surprisingly sincere. She thanked me for investing in her daughter's family and said that perhaps with time, the wounds could be patched, just like any good roof. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Not everything needs a reply. Some things are better left acknowledged, but unopened. One afternoon, Madison and I were gardening. She was elbow deep in soil, trying to plant cherry tomatoes. She looked up and said, "Nana, I want to be like you when I grow up." I laughed. "What, old and bossy?" "No," she said, frowning. "Strong, and not afraid." That nearly undid me, but I smiled and kept digging. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that strength isn't about shouting. It's about knowing your worth, knowing when to walk away, knowing when enough is enough. And above all, knowing you were never lucky to be somewhere you helped build. I still keep the blueprints of their house, the roof measurements, the contractor notes, not to hold a grudge, but to remind myself I was the one holding it up all along. When I first moved into this house, I thought of it as a place to retreat, a shelter, a boundary. A line in the sand between the woman I had been overlooked, underestimated, and the woman I was choosing to be now. But what I've learned is that this house didn't just give me distance. It gave me a center. It gave me back me. Rita stops by with her lemon bars one afternoon and sits down at the table with her usual dramatic flair. "You hear what happened to your daughter-in-law's Instagram page?" I raise an eyebrow. She fans herself with a napkin. "Someone hacked it, deleted everything. 5 years of photos gone. Sponsors dropped her." I blink, slow and calm. "Did you do it?" she asks, half joking. I chuckle. "Rita, I barely know how to unlock my phone." We laugh together, and I mean it. It's the belly-shaking kind of laugh I haven't felt in years. But once she's gone, I sit with that information, because even if I didn't do anything, the world sure has a way of balancing things when you stop holding it all up for people. A few days later, Mandy shows up at my house. No makeup, no filters, just raw. I invite her in. She sits down and holds her mug with both hands like it's the only warm thing in her life. "I lost 5 sponsors," she says. "They said I was too unstable." I nod, listening, not gloating. "I wanted so badly to look like we had it together," she adds. "The perfect house, the perfect family." But it was all smoke. I reach across the table and place my hand over hers. "I told you once, kindness is the only thing that holds a home together." Her lip trembles and she whispers, "I'm sorry, this time, it feels different. Not desperate, not performative, just real. I don't want Madison growing up thinking I treated you like you didn't matter." That part breaks me, not because I'm still angry, but because I've wanted to hear that for so long, and thought I never would. "I don't want that either," I say gently. She wipes her eyes. We sit in silence for a long time. 2 women, generations apart, finally understanding each other. Not as roles, not as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but just people. Wounded, wiser, willing to start over. The very next week, Madison brings home an assignment from school. "Write about a person you admire." She could have picked a celebrity, a coach, even her teacher. But she picked me. She reads it out loud at dinner. "My Nana is brave. She used to live with us, but we weren't very nice. Now she has her own house and flowers, and I want to be strong like her. She took the roof off but still gave us love back. That's a superpower." I cry. Not hard, not loudly, just the kind of cry that slips out when something settles where it's supposed to. Madison leans her head on my shoulder. "You're my safe place," she said. And just like that, every scar, every slight, every insult feels light. Because I didn't just take the roof, I took my worth with me. Spring comes early that year. I repaint the porch railings with soft white. Eric helps, no questions asked. Mandy plants tulips with Madison. They don't ask to move back in. They don't suggest I should. And that in itself is a gift, because now they know the cost of my peace. Now they understand I'm not just a convenient extra in their story. I'm my own story. One day, the mayor of our small town knocks on my door. He's hosting a community event for seniors who faced housing displacement or financial abuse by their families. Somehow, word of the roof incident made it into his office. I think your story could help others, he says. I don't agree right away. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it's personal, sacred, hard won. But then I remember the way Madison looked when she said I was her safe place, and I say yes. The day of the event, I stand at the front of the community center. Rita's in the front row, of course, grinning like a proud aunt. Eric and Mandy are seated near the back, quiet and respectful. And Madison? Right beside me, holding my hand, I speak slowly, clearly. I used to believe that aging meant shrinking, becoming smaller to fit into other people's lives. But I was wrong. People leaned forward. My son and his wife told me I was lucky to live under their roof. What they didn't realize was they were living under mine. A murmur moves through the crowd. I continue. So I moved out, and yes, I took the roof, but I also took my boundaries, my name, and my dignity. A few people clap. I raise my voice slightly. I'm not here to tell you to tear shingles off your family's house. I'm here to tell you that you deserve space, that you are not a burden, that kindness should never be mistaken for permission to be treated poorly. Applause fills the room. Madison looks up at me like I'm magic, and in that moment, maybe I am. After the event, an older woman comes up to me. She has wispy gray hair, eyes rimmed with fatigue. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in months, she says quietly. Said I was too much trouble. I take her hands in mine. You're not too much, I say. You're enough, and it's okay to say so, she cries. I hug her. This is what power looks like. Not vengeance, not spite, but using your pain to hold someone else up. I go home that evening, change into my lavender cardigan, and sit on the porch. The sun is setting. The roof is sturdy. There's wind in the trees, laughter down the street, and peace in my chest. I think back to those early days when I had to choose between staying silent or making a move. I chose me, and now I sit under the roof. I claimed with no regrets. I used to think strength meant saying yes to helping, yes to staying quiet, yes to giving up space for someone else to stretch. But real strength, it's knowing when to say no. No to disrespect, no to guilt, no to the version of yourself someone else decides for you. I said no, and it saved me. A few weeks after the community event, I get a letter in the mail, not an email, not a text. A real letter, handwritten, folded neatly, in a pink envelope. It's from Madison. Even though she lives just 15 minutes away, she wanted to send me something grown up, she said. Inside, I find a short note. Dear Nana, thank you for being strong. You made our family better. Someday I want to be just like you. Love, Madison. There's a small drawing too. Stick figures standing under a roof. One has silver hair and a big smile. I press the note to my chest and breathe in deep. This is everything. Later that month, the town paper runs a short piece on the senior housing event. They include a picture of me and Madison, standing in front of my house. The headline reads, "She took the roof and gave others shelter." Rita cuts it out and frames it for me. It hangs in my living room now, right beside the scrapbook Madison made. People wave at me on the street. Strangers ask me for advice. One woman even stops me in the post office and says, "You're the reason I finally stood up to my daughter." It's strange how a quiet decision, one that felt scary at the time, ripples outward and becomes something bigger than you. All I did was reclaim my space, and suddenly, it gave others permission to do the same. One day I walk out onto my porch and find Eric waiting there. He's holding a small wooden box. "Found this in the garage," he says. "Figured it might belong to you." I open it slowly. Inside is a mix of old photo slides, some of my recipe cards, and a tiny keychain that says, "One Mom." It smells like dust and cedar. I swallow hard. "These were in my nightstand," I whisper. "Before I moved," he nods. I didn't want to throw them out. I just didn't know what to do with them. Now you do, I say, and give him a half smile. We sit for a moment, and I ask him something I've been holding back. Do you remember what you said to me that day? In the kitchen? He looks down. Yeah, I told you you were lucky. Do you still believe that? He shakes his head. No, I was wrong. We were lucky, and we didn't see it. I nod. That's all I needed to hear. He squeezes my hand before he leaves. It's small, but it's healing. Mandy comes by a week later with Madison, holding a basket of scones. Brought you something sweet, she says. And not store-bought this time. I grin. You're learning. She walks into my kitchen like she belongs. Because now she asks. Before assuming she does, she takes a photo of the two of us, holding our coffee mugs, and posts it with the caption, "Learning from the strongest woman I know." Respect goes both ways. No filters, no gloss, just truth. I comment, proud of you. And I mean it. That night, Madison and I sit on the porch, watching the stars come out. She asks, Nana, what's it feel like to live alone? I think for a moment. It feels like peace, like knowing every cup, every lamp, every creaky floorboard belongs to me. It feels like breathing without asking permission. She nods. I want to live like that too, she says. You will, I reply, but first, you have to learn how to take care of yourself, not just with chores and school, but by knowing when something doesn't feel right, like when someone treats you bad. Exactly. She thinks on that for a while, then asks, will you live here forever? I smile and say, as long as I can. And when I can't anymore, it's yours. Her eyes go wide. Really? Yes. I've already made sure of it. I tell her about the clause in the will. How this house, this roof, this space, everything I built, belongs to her someday. She leaps off the porch and does a cartwheel on the lawn. Then hugs me so tight my ribs ache. A month later I get a letter from the town council. They're naming me an honorary advocate for elder independence and inviting me to speak at next year's town meeting. I laugh when I read it. Rita nearly falls out of her chair when I show her. Look at you, she says. Didn't even raise your voice, just raised your value. She's right. I didn't storm out. I didn't slam doors. I just walked into my worth and let them deal with the silence that followed. Sometimes I still hear echoes from that old house. I hear Mandy saying, "You're lucky we let you stay." I hear Eric brushing me off during dinner conversations. I hear the sound of my own voice, quiet, unsure, telling myself it's just a phase. They're just tired, they don't mean it. But then I open the door to this house. I see the rosemary growing strong in the kitchen window. I hear my name spoken with kindness, not contempt. I see a roof I chose, a space I own, a legacy I built with steady hands and unwavering love. And I remember, I'm not lucky to be here. I'm right to be here. So if you're listening, if you've ever been told you take up too much space, if you've ever been made to feel like an afterthought in your own story, let this be your sign. You are not a burden. You are not an extra. You are not someone to be tucked away and tolerated. You are the foundation, the frame, the roof. And if someone forgets that, remind them. Even if it means taking back every beam, every nail, every shingle, and starting again, because I did, and I've never slept more peacefully under my own roof.